In the midst of my confusion, in the time of desperate need, when I'm thinking not too clearly, a gentle voice does intercede. Slow down, be still. Be still and wait on the Spirit of the Lord. Slow down and hear His voice. And know that He is God. In the time of tribulation, when I'm feeling so unsure, when things are pressing in about me, comes a gentle voice, so still, so pure. Slow down, be still, my child, be still and wait on the Spirit of the Lord. Slow down and hear His voice. And know that He is God. And know that He is
single global editable biometric. So thank you very much for the music and the song. So beautiful. Thank you, Karina and Rolf. That's exactly the song I was needing. I sense that I'm spending 48 hours in one day. So we all need to slow down and hear the voice. So wonderful music, so wonderful message. And so I was reading the other day, I was doing this study. These are ongoing studies which I'm thinking about, and sometimes I'm sitting down and writing my thoughts and searching quotations, searching for background information, searching for authority, just to check up on my thoughts. Where are they coming from? So I was reading this quote, and the greatest danger is not that we aim too high. You know, some people are thinking of, this is who we are, and we just have to lower the standards and accept who we are. And that might be true in a certain context, but the greatest danger is it's actually to aim too low and reach it. So did you get it? The greatest danger is not that we aim too high and miss, but that we aim too low and reach it. And so I discovered that actually it was the famous painter Michelangelo. Probably some of you've seen his paintings in real. Well, who are you, by the way? And are you that person that think like many do? I believe what I can see. I believe what I can touch. I believe what I can measure. Heaven, the new earth, eternity. Well, that's kind of a fairy tale. Yeah, my grandma used to read for me when I was a kid. But hey, I'm a grown-up adult today and I can make my own thinking. That might be comforting, maybe, but that's not exactly scientific. Life is complicated enough. And I don't really have time to chase these fantasy dreams. I've got bills, I've got deadlines, I've got some relationships, some of them are very difficult to handle. I need to have some fun. I mean, this is it. That's what I've got here and now. I need to concentrate on the next big thing, on my TV. There is so much going on. I think there is some Euro football or handball if you're from Europe. Maybe my feed, social media, these are the real thing. These are now. I'm getting a lot of likes, so I feel good. But sometimes, in those rare, quiet moments, when I decide to be still and listen to the voice, that thought sneaks in. What if what my grandma, maybe my parents, was telling me, what I was reading and when I was a kid, what if that is for real? What if I'm so focused and concentrated on the here and now that I end up missing out on eternity, on real life? Is this the real life? Is the coming life, is that the real one? Am I just going to disappear? Is that it? Am I just going to disappear as a chemical blob and nobody's going to ever remember that I've ever existed? It's kind of a very heavy cognitive, not just discomfort, it's painful. And I know from my own experience and from other people's experience, this is a thought that no one can shake off. So we fill in. We put some entertainment. We put some food, maybe a lot of food. We put some travel, maybe a lot of travel. We put some job and career and money. But what if the greatest risk isn't believing too much, but actually believing too little? That's what actually Michelangelo meant in his quote. What if the greatest risk isn't believing too much, but actually believing too little? So what if, by aiming too low, settling for less, for almost nothing, a flash, a blink, what if I'm closing the door on something unimaginably greater? And so I like to think that I'm grounded in reality. And so I'm coming here as an agnostic today. And I'm going to see, can I do anything about it? What if I'm just going for, I'm trusting what I can see? As I said, I can touch it, I can measure it. So what if? Have you thought about it? So welcome to today's study, the final reset, that may be heaven. Is it worth preparing for? Just in case? So I'm trying and I'm inviting you to come with me on this travel. And this message is especially for a certain group of people. I don't know your background. You might be very well grounded in your religion, Christianity. And as many times before, I'm not going to talk about religion here. And I'm going to make the case. And I've done a structure. I kind of like to structure my studies, not to look too messy, but it makes sense to me. So I'm going to start my study, and I'm going to invite you to think a little bit about this, and if you find this information of value, please share with whoever you want to share it with. Because this is not a science channel, it's not a science class. It's a more like introspective questionnaire study kind of. We need to ask questions. And we do ask questions when we are using our ability to do critical thinking. So what if it's the main question today? Well, I said it before, you probably heard it, maybe not here on Light Channel TV, maybe you heard about Pascal's wager. And yes, I know there is a lot of conversation about Pascal's wager. There are pros and cons and conversations. And you probably heard about he was a pretty smart person, individual. He became a believer. 17th century, he was mathematician, philosopher as well. In my work, I use some of his discoveries, and we use, for example, yeah, for pressure measurement, Pascal measurement. Anyway, he proposed this powerful argument known as Pascal's wager. And so he reasoned that when it comes to intelligence, to some God's supernatural existence, we are all forced to make a choice. There are only two options. Even if we try to avoid it, there is no other possibility. There is not a third option. You cannot opt out to either in between. I don't want to go into God exists. I don't want to go into God does not exist. I'm just going to wait on the fence and see what's going to happen. That's not an option, because if you just take the neutral position, you actually took the position that God does not exist, and I'm not going to live accordingly. So that's his wager, his bet, right? And so if you bet that God exists and you're right, he said, you gain everything. So you get eternal life, and not just eternal life, and I'm not talking here about some esoteric utopia in some kind of a new age-ish future. I'm talking right here, right now. And I'm talking about getting a meaningful life. And I'm talking about getting a real ID. You know, we're talking about United States. They just started to enforce what they call the real ID. Well, I'm challenging this. This is what's the real ID and purpose, right? That's the wager. Okay. And we heard this morning a powerful message exactly talking about ownership. And what if we realize that who we are, it's actually who we identify with. So his wager, Pascal's wager, over centuries has been used by many people either to attack it or to prove it. That's up to you. And so he said, well, if God does not exist, there is no loss. You'll never even know you were wrong. You're just going to disappear. But then there is no gain. You'll never know that you're right. You lose nothing of ultimate value. But the thing is that if you and I bet against God and we're wrong, we're going to lose everything. So I don't know about you. He made a point. And I was reading for many years ago about this wager, and I was thinking, yeah, he made a point. Maybe even if I was thinking back then the scientific evidence seems uncertain, there is a rational choice that it's better to live as if God exists. Because the potential loss, it's eternal, it's infinite. So what if the evidence for design, it's actually all around us? So the last 50 years and the more we search for the meaning of life, the more we discover the intelligent design. But what if people are just refusing to see it? So it's about evidence. Well, I was thinking what kind of analogy to use in this study here. So I'm fascinated by new technologies, valuable technologies that are actually bringing value to humanity. So I'm waiting for the final, at least if it's going to happen, hydrogen engine. And so I'm thinking, well, what if you were walking in a desert? I don't know if you did, but I did. A vast desert, you see nothing but sand. And you meet this powerful truck. Actually, you can see here on behind me on the screen. That's a pretty powerful, amazing truck, which is running on hydrogen. Well, it's still a concept, but it's running. I know it's not perfect yet. But you're thinking, well, every part of that hydrogen run truck, from the fuel cell to the control system, took about 4.2 billion years to come about. Right? It just happened. Random mutations and so forth. And so, no design, no engineers behind. It assembled by itself by accident over billions and billions and billions. I heard that somebody said. So that's why I'm repeating. I'm not being ironic. With no designer. And to see how complex and intentional a hydrogen engine, I don't remember if I took a link here. Yeah, I think I did, yeah. And so I was searching and a beginner's guide to hydrogen engines and how they work. I'm not going in there. If you want to go there, if you're fascinated by this technology, you'll also find there is, I think, a short explainer video on the beginner guide. So you don't have to be an engineer. It's a very good explanation of how this is working. So I'm asking, and please do change my mind. Try to do it if you're an agnostic. I'm open. I'm open for conversation, I'm open for discussion, and I'm open for new ideas. But please bring some evidence and authority. And so if we instantly recognize design in human inventions, why do we deny it in the natural world, which is far more complex? And so is it truly logical to believe that information, order, and purpose can arise from chaos without any guiding intelligence? And are we being honest with ourselves, or are we simply defaulting to a worldview that excludes the supernatural? And so that's a challenge. It's a challenge to the bias, to human biases and human motives, which I believe it's strongly a decision-making process. Humans have motives behind their thoughts and decisions and biases. So I'm going to bring us back to 2021 here, 2025, back from the 17th century is Pascal. And let's bring it into the present, because this is a challenge. Again, it's not a scientific challenge, it's a moral challenge. And I know there are hundreds, if not thousands, of videos online which are actually explaining away intelligent design and explaining away Pascal's wager. And so, if you imagine, and all of us, at some point in life, we're going to be at a crossroads of our life. And we have to place this bet. And we can't place it with chips, but with our very existence. And so the question we have to ask, are we willing to stake our only one and only life on the belief and the choice that there is no design, no purpose, no eternity? Are we so sure, are we absolutely sure that we will risk everything and vanish forever? That's a thought, which is a question which I'm asking quite a few people coming to me, approaching as either an atheist or an agnostic. And so I don't have to go into explaining a lot of theology about, because people think straight away, oh no, I'm not religious. I was trying to have a little bit of this kind of conversation yesterday a driver came here with a package, and he's from Iran, and we had a conversation. He remembered me before. He's been here many times, and he's fed up with religion. He's coming from Iran, and he was talking about how much he hates religion and the ayatollahs and the imams and so forth. And I was trying, and unfortunately he had to leave, and I said, we gotta continue this conversation because I understand where you're coming from. But I was putting up this thought, hopefully in his mind, are you so sure that you will risk vanishing forever just to avoid this discomfort of faith, of believing? Will you dare to bet on eternity, knowing that this is not a casual, just in case insurance policy? I see a lot of even Christians that they go into Christianity as a second option, as an insurance policy. You know, and when we make an insurance, either on a car, on the house, we hope that we're never going to use it, right? Is that Christianity? Because in my way of thinking, when I'm reading and I'm studying, this wager demands everything. It's all or nothing. Because if I choose to believe, it means a radical change. It demands that I'm going to start living as if eternity is real and has already started, as if my choices echoes forever. And as I said, I don't believe there is a middle ground. A lot of people, they have been blinded by their thinking that they will just sit on the fence and wait and see, and that's never going to happen. They have already made their choices. So it is either live for the here and now, and I'm going to call it the flash world. I've used this expression before. It's just a flash, a blink. So if you can imagine just a flash in the infinite vast eternity, that would be a human life that decides to bet on here and now. Flash and disappear. Bet on eternity, will have to live accordingly. So this is for me not an intellectual decision. It's not a philosophical conversation that I'm having with myself. And I'm sure many of you, most of you, hopefully all of you have been thinking, going through this process, because we're not, whatever religion or denomination we decide to go for, hopefully it's not by tradition. For me, it's a moral one. And the refusal to acknowledge design, it's not scientific for me, because it makes who we are at the end of the road. It gives us identity. And I have experienced that it's often rooted in a lack of willingness to trust. It's also rooted in a fear of standing out. I don't know about you, I was growing up in a heavily atheistic communist society, and standing out as a Christian and not believing in evolution, that was quite mentally painful in a sense, because people and my colleagues and students and teachers, you can imagine. But I also believe that it's also a desire to avoid, for many people, if I'm looking in the West here, of course there is a discomfort to change. There is this cognitive dissonance. I don't want to change. I'm feeling more secure to follow the flock, and everybody believes so, and this is what the science is saying, and so forth. And so our doubt becomes a shield against spiritual awakening. So let's move on, because I've got some points to make here. There is this call coming out of Joshua: choose yourselves for yourself this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my house will serve the Lord. And so if you know your Bible, you know the full historical and textual context. But in the context of this study, I like to kind of take it a little bit not out of context, but it's about a choice here, because Jesus said no man can serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and money, or mammon, or this life here and now. So the neutral position, it doesn't exist. The Lord desires us to choose to serve Him and to come out from the world and be separate. There can be no half-hearted service. Right? So again, I'm asking question here. Do we dare to bet our life on the idea that this is all, that's it, and risk eternity? And live like it matters. And I have to start now. Because my wager, this wager, is not optional. It's all or nothing. And so we have to do some steps here. And this is for the agnostic, and I'm going to challenge, I know that there is a lot of conversation about it. But I love science, real science. And I hope you do too. And I'm going to bring up some evidence here. And there are three major principles today that supports intelligent design. And there is another reason I'm going to why I'm bringing this here. I hear even Christians talking about, well, it's a question of faith. It's 50-50. Have you heard that? You know, people are saying, Christians, they say they're Bible-believing Christians. Oh, you saw it's a question of faith. You cannot prove creation. You cannot prove God. That's a Christian talking. Have you heard that? Well, think again. I totally disagree on that line of thinking. There are three main principles which the world, humans, people, we will have to consider. And I'm not going to go into the details. I'm just going to mention them. And that's the information theory. Information theory. It's not the IT. It's information, the complexity and information in DNA. And you can find it online, but here it says the cell confirms our expectation from design. Our DNA contains incredible amounts of encoded information. Living cell transforms this encoded chemical message into machines which are engineered to perform necessary biochemical function. So the conversion of DNA into protein relies upon a software-like system of commands and biochemical codes. Pretty complex, right? But just if you don't remember, this is principle number one, information theory. Okay? There are two more. And I was recently, when doing this study, actually did put this one here on my Facebook feed. I usually don't use Facebook, but anyway, I challenge anyone, especially those of you and us Christians that are maybe, talking about there is no proof. Let's study together, friends. Remove one element from a cell and it dies. And so it is not possible for the cell to have evolved step by step. Okay? This is the principle of information theory. Okay? There is so much encoded information in the DNA, and this encoded information transfer chemical message into machines. Okay. And so the next one I'm going to bring here, it's called the irreducible complexity. Okay, irreducible complexity. The protein machines produced by our DNA are often irreducibly complex. Is a purposeful arrangement of parts where if any part is removed or mutated, the structure ceases to assemble or function properly. So we don't have to remember more. That's principle number 2. That's principle of life. Okay? So first one, it was information theory. You cannot have design, you cannot have a hydrogen engine unless there were a lot of engineers over time sitting down and creating information that were transformed into a design. And here we have irreducible complexity, which is if any part is removed, it will not function. And the best example here, you got this bacterial flagellum. I don't know how exactly to say the word in English, but that's bacterial flagellum. Okay, it's a very simple engine, but it's actually very complex. And friends, this is in a bacteria. Can you imagine in more complex? And I've got a lot of information, and I just want to mention this here. Okay, and the third one. Okay, so information theory, irreducible complexity, which is you cannot take one part, everything is going to collapse. So like I'm putting a hydrogen engine together, or just take a diesel engine, you cannot make the engine function if there is one missing part, which is essential for the engine to function. And so the last one here is the cosmological constants, and I've summarized it into these fundamental numbers that govern the laws of physics, such as, okay, these are fundamental numbers, which is the gravitational constant, which determines the strength of gravity, the speed of light. As we know, it's the fundamental speed limit in the universe. And then we have the electromagnetic force, which is the alpha wave force, govern the interaction between electrical charged particles. Okay, so I'm not going into there. But these are the main principles which are unchangeable, which govern the universe, which makes the universe and our planet and life as we know it function. It's not possible to change anything, as it will not be possible to change the gravitational constant. It's a little bit different from wherever you are on Earth here, but it's still a constant, as it is the speed of light. And there is a lot of, not just speculation, there is a lot of calculation and a lot of science behind it, because if there is one little change in these constants, life will not be able to exist. So this is what is being referred as the fine-tuning of the universe. Refers to the observation that the fundamental physics constants of the universe appears to be, like I put here on this image, precisely calibrated. That's precising calibration, allowing for the existence of stars, planets, and life as we know it. And so if we were even slightly different, the universe will not be able to function, possibly inhospitable to life. Would you agree with me on this? I don't know where you come from, but that's my conviction. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, it's quite interesting, that's God's invisible qualities. That's what I would put it. It's not just theological, it's not just moral. God's invisible qualities are based on these universal constants. His eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. So by just looking at nature, we should wonder. Because the heaven declares the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands. Nature testifies of an intelligence, a presence, an active energy that works in and through her laws. There is in nature the continual working of the Father and the Son. Isn't that amazing, friends? And so I believe that if people were willing to see design in a hydrogen engine, how can we dismiss the evidence of design in nature? If you ever wondered why the world is on the path of self-destruction, because right now there are billions of dollars and euros being invested in weapons and war and surveillance and bigger jails and more hate and more propaganda. And should I go on? And shouldn't we actually admit that this is nothing to do with logic, but it's about pride? And so my 2 cents on Pascal's wager. Are we willing to risk missing out on eternity? And so let's bring it even more into the present. Let's put it in a modern context here. I don't know about you, but maybe not for the hardened atheists. Maybe it's for you, the undecided, maybe the comfortable, just for fun Christian. Maybe you grew up in a church. Yeah, I did. Maybe we would wear the label, oh, I'm a Christian. I've seen that on bumper sticks. I love Jesus, and so on. Maybe you even enjoy the community. But deep down, in these still quiet moments, we realize, actually, I have no faith. It's just a club. It's just a tradition. Maybe it's just a safety net. I like to meet my friends and have some potluck together. Maybe it's just something I keep on the shelf for emergencies or for social comfort. And so here comes the shocker. And as I said many times before here, I'm not doing soft studies here on Light Channel TV. I do spiritual electrotherapy. So please do forgive me if you get these brain shocks. That's the point. See, God is not inviting us, you and I, to a club. God is not inviting you and I to some kind of a ritual or religion. He's calling you to a way of life. So that's why I'm telling people, when they tell me I'm not religious, neither am I. What do you mean? You just said you're a Christian. Yes, but I said this is a lifestyle, I'm saying. This is a radical, this is an all-in journey which is shaping every single step I take, every choice I make, every value I hold on, whatever I believe or not. Even this choice, this lifestyle, it's going to transform every single cell in my body. Sounds crazy? Is that religion to you? It's not for me. I'm not going to some kind of a weird temple or whatever church or wherever you want to go just to please some unknown God. And so for me, this is not about hedging my bets and keeping my options open. That's religion, my friends. The Christianity I'm calling for and I'm searching for, it's a transformation, it's a lifestyle. It's about a wager that demands the whole life. And so maybe we're not willing to bet our full existence on just the idea that we can coast through life half awake, half committed, and still inherit eternity? And are we so sure that we are going to risk vanishing forever? And I'm not here to scare anyone, and I'm not here to make anyone feel bad or feel sad, but like I said, this is Light Channel TV, friends, and we do spiritual electrotherapy here. Are we there to bet on eternity, knowing that this means a total transformation, a new way of living, a faith that is visible in every action, every relationship, every ambition, and so on? And I could go on. There is a statement which is being made here, and that's at the end, at least of the biblical explanation of the end of time. And there is a certain group of people, which I've just explained, maybe in a modern language, which there is going to be some kind of a final judgment. And this judge said, "So then, because you're lukewarm, neither cold nor hot, I will vomit you out of my mouth." That's pretty tough, isn't it? Definitely. So if you believe in the God of the Bible, you know what this means, don't you? He desires us to choose to serve him and to come out from the world and be separate. There can be no half-hearted service. I would say that's pretty clear to me. There are many in the church who at heart belong to the world. But God calls for a revival and a reformation. The words of the true witness apply to the people of God who live in this time. I know your works. You're neither cold nor hot. I really hope that's not going to be said about you, and I'm praying for that. And so, again, some shocker questions here I'm going to do. Do we dare bet on our life on the idea that a lukewarm, club-style Christianity is enough, friends? Are we willing to risk everything on eternity and live like it matters, starting now? Because as I said, this wager is not optional. It's all or nothing. The next step demands a radical change, or the bet is off. Do you think this wager is optional? Do we dare to risk our life, our eternity, on the idea that a lukewarm club-style Christianity is enough? Well, that was point number one, and I'm going to make two more points. The choice, eternity or now. I've been thinking, what is the value of human life if we choose one way or another? And that's beyond being religious. Again, I'm not religious. I can't say it enough. Plenty of Christians say it as if I believe in God or talk eternity were just another quirky tradition, denomination. But the wager that we learned about in The first point, the first step, it's not about joining a club or repeating rituals. Is it for you? It's about a life-altering decision. It's not life-altering if I just go for fun to a club, if I just go for churchianity, I just go for Sunday or Saturday service, and then I'm just living as everybody else. It's a life-altering decision. It's going to reshape everything about me. It's going to reshape my values. And when that's going to happen, I'm actually going to not just outsource those values. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to show them. I'm going to try to explain them to the best of my knowledge. I'm not going to keep them for myself. And how we treat every person we meet. See, if I live on that fence, I don't really care what's happening in Gaza or Ukraine or Israel or Iraq or my neighbor. Well, powerful statements. A profession of religion places men in the church, but does not of itself make them Christians. See, not my words. A profession of religion without corresponding faith and works is a delusion. Do you know what a delusion is? This is self-delusion, friends. If we just go to a church or wherever you decide to go, doesn't make us Christians without corresponding faith. In thoughts, in words, and in action, in our heart, in our mind. So it doesn't matter at the end if I know all the Bible and I know exactly how to explain every single prophecy in the Bible if I live without corresponding faith. You know, if you believe in the Bible, Satan is the best on this planet to know about the Bible and the prophecies. You can bet on it. Do you agree on this? If eternity is real, so again another shocker statement from me, Christianity is not a weekend hobby. It is conscious, costly lifestyle that prepares you and I and everyone you influence forever. It's not a weekend hobby. Conscious, costly lifestyle. It can cost me everything. Not just the money that I don't own anyway, not just whatever my job, my reputation, whatever it takes, forever. So it's a priceless treasure. So again, we have this analogy in the Bible. And so let's picture this. We discover a flawless diamond worth, let's say, $10 billion. And to obtain it, to get your hands on it, you have to liquidate everything because you need to buy that piece of land. You sell your house, you liquidate your savings, even your reputation, because people are going to think you're crazy. And so all those likes that you used to get before, nobody's going to like you anymore. You know, nobody's going to watch your videos. Nobody is actually going to say hello to you. But you know, if you hesitate, the offer is gone. You're gonna be sleepless at night. You're gonna think somebody else is gonna find it and is gonna buy the land before me and is gonna get their hands on the diamond. And you know, Jesus used the same analogy. And yeah, I hope you, if you have your Bible, and please check me up. I might be wrong on something here, so I keep an eye on the comments, And I'm getting feedback here from one side, right? If I have any comment. So the kingdom of heaven is like this treasure hidden in a field. Then in his joy he went and sold all he had and bought that field, right? And so this farmer wasn't crazy, or was he? This guy, nobody called him religious. Why would you call him religious? You know, so he's simply logical. He found a treasure. He discovered that that treasure was worth a lot of value. So he sold everything else. And so you say you value your life. How much is it worth? Is it enough to surrender your habits, your image, your talents, your money, your pleasures? Is it? If you really believe eternity is real, what would you change first? Your calendar? Your bank statement? Your TikTok feed? And the list could go on. And again, friends, here I'm not trying to give anyone any bad feelings here. I'm just doing, like I said, these electrotherapy shockers because I want us to think really serious. I'm not softening here because we live in very dangerous times. And so we need to pull ourselves together and make the final decision before it's too late. So if we claim that we value other people, what are we sacrificing for their eternal good? I said it before, how much time are we even spending on warning other people? How much money are we spending on it? That's an introspective question for each and every single one of us. Because if I really believe in eternity, I would do anything for me and for everybody else around me. And so what price tag would you convince you that the soul, your soul, and the people around us, their soul, it's priceless? If we decide to adopt a moral God as a guide, what does he expect from every conversation, every purchase, every click, every thought, every word, every act, and so on? If we adopt a moral God as a guide, you know, that means a lot. That means a lot. So, how is it with our choice? The flesh, here and now world, and the eternal one. And let's do a modern test of value. We can choose the flesh world. We can keep our comfort, our status, our money, house, entertainment for a while. It's going to be taken away from us anyway. And then we lose eternity. But hey, I had fun. I heard people saying that to me. Can you imagine? I'm shaking my head. And then we can choose eternity, but that demands that we have to pay up front. Did you know that? We need to pay with our pride on the altar. We need to shut off the secret sin, the lazy habits, the self-centered ambitions, and so forth. The list is long. You know your list. I know mine. What good? When the character of Christ shall be perfectly reproduced in his people, then he will come. And so the price of eternity its visible lifestyle, obedient lifestyle now. Right? It's not a religion. So let's do some self-auditing here. The Bible is pretty clear. And as I said, this is just, it's a study, it's a topic, it's an introspective study asking a lot of these shocker questions for the agnostics, for the Christians on the fence. We live a living sacrifice, which is a non-conformity. We lay down our lives. No outward observance can take the place of simple faith and entire renunciation of self. We can settle for now, a lot of pleasure maybe today, oblivion tomorrow. Or we can risk our flesh life now for eternity. And so there is so much more to say about it, but I still want to finish this study. I'm just going to make some additional conclusive points here in this study. If your soul, if you believe that your soul and every soul you meet is worth the blood of God's Son, what are you willing to pay for your own soul and the souls of those people that's within your reach? And so again, we went through this study, and I hope I made my point that there is no middle ground, there is no middle subscription tier for eternity. And I hope you also understand it this way. Because the price we pay now, the price we pay today and this week will reveal which option we truly value. And so I do believe that the wager is still alive. We can still bet. You can still bet. For as long as we are alive and we have our thinking, critical thinking capacity. But we also see around us that the clock is ticking. And so I just want to make a comparison here at the end, because I see a lot of people around me, and even Christians, they obviously ignore for some reason or other what's going on. And it's like, well, it's happening there, it doesn't have anything to do with me. So I've done a comparison here at the end of this study. There is a new old order which is being set in place right now. It's already structured. There are few things which needs to be implemented legally. So that new world order is going to be reality. But that's not my point. I just want to ask the question, which future are we preparing for? Because there are two competing visions right now. See, the world is racing toward this new order. Of course, it's about bringing peace, they say. We have to spend more money on weapons, more war for peace. Even genocide, it's allowed. And so we have this build of Internet of Eyes, the digital prison, as it has been coined. Digital IDs, CBDCs, promises of convenience, security. If you follow a moral God, you will also be able to know and discover that beneath the surface there is a tightening grip. This digital prison disguised as progress. And so at the same time, the Bible, if you know your Bible, describes a radically different new world, the new earth, where freedom, justice, and love reigns forever. And I know I did it kind of on purpose to actually make my point here. But that's a question for you and I today. Which future are we going to prepare for? Well, this is a one high-tech gated city. You see here on the image behind me. We are basically already there in many parts of the world. Every move tracked, every purchase logged, every visitor scanned. Well, they say it's safe, efficient. Have you heard that before? Safe and effective. And we know that today, how safe and how effective it was. And then the other option here, no locks, no surveillance, just trust, love, belonging, real peace. Everybody's free. Free will. Nobody's manipulating anybody. No coercion. No death. No sickness. No pain. And the list goes on. And so people astonishingly decides to go for this one. Why? Let's listen to this man, Dr. Mike Eden, which I hold in high esteem. He's not an open Christian. I think he's somewhere between agnostic, becoming a Christian. Listen to what he has to say.
Digital ID. I'm warning you. I'm trying to help. It's the last really important decision you will get to make. If you sign up for it, the people who are taking over do not require your consent, your collaboration, you to do anything after that. And this is why I'm going to tell you why. Even I, as someone who's not involved in finance, I'm clever enough to see that the debts of all major countries has been deliberately piled on and escalated to the point where it's obvious to all of us that the debts can never be repaid. I assume most people have not heard of me. Most people. I am a lifetime research scientist. I worked for 32 years in the pharmaceutical industry and biotech. My most senior positions were at Pfizer. I was vice president and worldwide head of research in allergic and respiratory diseases. Since 2020, I have been speaking out against the fraudulent pandemic and the intentionally dangerous injections. And my experience has been to have been censored and smeared, largely. So if you've not heard of me before, that's the reason, that censorship and smearing is the experience of people who try and tell you true things that the authorities don't want you to hear. What I expected once I started looking around and noticing other things, like there was a talk of electronic money, getting rid of cash, and there was talk of digital ID. I remember Tony Blair trying to do that in the 90s. And frankly, I joined the dots and I could see a world in which you were required to have digital ID, that cash was removed, so you had to spend only using digital money. And I thought, you know what, if I was the evil person, I would say that your digital ID will not be valid unless you're up to date with your injections. And I came across a document from the EU. It's called EU Vabeco, V-A-B-E-C-O. And it's a scheme that started in 2018. Bottom line is the EU Commission anticipates a future in which every EU citizen has a digital ID whose validity is governed by whether or not they've been injected with the latest mRNA-based, quote, vaccine. So they anticipate regular injection for the rest of your life. That's, you know, if you, and the idea is it'll improve health and safety as you travel around, which is a lie. It's a lie. You being vaccinated doesn't protect anybody. In fact,
we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new accounting is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens.
We are shifting to a new financial system, but the general population is not shifting to a new financial system. It's shifting to a control grid.
CBDC can allow government agencies and private sector players to program, to create smart contracts, to allow targeted policy functions. For example, welfare payment. For example, consumption coupon. For example, food stamp. By programming CBDC, those money can be precisely targeted for what kind of people can own and what kind of use this money can be utilized.
A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations, and also we will have the technology to enforce that.
They're saying we can control with rules. We don't need currency anymore. And so it's no longer a financial system or a currency system. It's purely a digital concentration camp. It's a slavery system.
When Catherine Austin Fitts talks, we should listen. She's a former high-level investment banker in New York and held senior office in the first Bush administration in Washington.
There may be 1,000 models of how it could work. But essentially, you will have, whether it's a banking account or a credit card, and it can be turned off and on. So my incentive system is not you go to work and work hard and you get money. My incentive system can be based on how you behaved in the last 5 minutes, on a 24/7 basis.
CBDCs, as the name suggests, would be issued by central banks like the Federal Reserve in America and the Bank of England, not by high street banks. They would signal the end of cash, and every transaction you make would be transparent and held on a permanent database. Crucially, under a net zero regime, your carbon footprint could be at the heart of the system.
We're developing, through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker.
This can be the infrastructure for a carbon credit system. It's totalitarian control, and if people don't become aware of it now, it's going to be too late to backtrack.
In an unknown future, one thing is certain. Digital IDs are essential to the project. If they become compulsory, data on every detail of our lives will be monitored, stored, and monetized. Nothing, but nothing, would be private.
For younger people, often it's the case that they like technology, they're completely au fait with it, they enjoy it. So they don't see the dangers that technology can bring because, like a drug dealer does, you feed people, low levels of drug where it's all fun. And then later, when you have them addicted, you feed the hard stuff and that destroys their life. So in a similar way, all of this technology is currently pretty much nice. But when the central bank digital currency comes in and the control comes in and the censorship systems, then the younger people will realize all too late in many cases that they've walked themselves into a trap.
Well, now you know. So the message is out, the information is there. So we need to ask these questions. We watch this video. Do we see if we are Bible-believing people? If you know your Bible, you know, these people that commented, some of them are Christians, some of them are agnostics, but they do see the dangers. But for you, if you know your Bible, does this echo the warnings of Revelation 13 about a system where no one can buy or sell unless he takes the mark? It does for me. And so are we preparing for the new earth or just adapting to the world's new order coming in? If we really see the pattern, what are we going to do about it? That's a self-explanatory actually test. If we understand the pattern and if we are preparing for one world or the other, actually our actions and thoughts and words right now are showing which one we actually go forth. Are you willing to trade your freedom for convenience? And so if eternity is our goal, isn't preparation a necessity? Or maybe we don't really believe it's real. And maybe that's why we don't do any sacrifice. We don't change anything. We just let it go. We just let it happen. Is that so, my friends? And so are we deceiving ourselves? And by that, are we deceiving others by claiming to hope for eternity, but living as if this world is all there is? Is that so? Some shocker, very uncomfortable questions. And so we got two options here. This is my last thing here. We have option A. We can ride on the passive, do nothing Christianity. Yeah, you know. There is a lot out there. You can pick one. I've even heard some people saying that there are neutral lanes. There are some spectator lanes where you can actually see this one out. If you know your Bible, do you really believe that there is a sitting spectator lane? Is that so? Can you sit it out and see, okay, it's going to pass. And everything is going to be all right. Is that so? We know the story about the 5 foolish virgins that had no extra oil. I think they were trying to see if they were on the spectator lane, the passive, do nothing Christianity. And so the servant who knew his master's will and did nothing will be beaten with many stripes. That's the passive, do nothing Christianity. Hopefully we are not among this one. We know our master will and we just sit on the spectator lane. all who dwells, it says, will worship the beast, except the prepared. So if you stay passive, whose mark will you end up carrying by default? So I know this is not a study. Indolence and spiritual slothfulness will doom the soul. This is not a study about the mark of the beast. This is not a religious, theological study. If you want to have these kind of studies, I'm more than willing to help you and to send you studies. There is a lot going there, but it is my strong conviction that a lot of people, even those of us that at least claim to be going for the eternal bet, we kind of sit on the spectator lane. But that's not really an option. And so we have the option B. We have the active prophetic preparedness. We have here is the patience of the saints who will keep the commandments of God. And keeping implies doing. Let me see if I can get this text out of here. Anyway, we have the option to gird up the loins, be sober, and hope to the end. We have the option to be training our mind to stand when convenience turns to coercion. Because Noah built an ark before the first raindrop, before the flood. So all this convenience which is being sold to you and I, all this digital world, the technologies, the digital IDs, the CBDCs which are coming, the vaccine passports, travel passports, and so on and so on. Dr. Mike Hedon, he wasn't a Christian at all. He wasn't even thinking. If you go in online, you saw the title, that's a full interview. It's still available online on YouTube. This is where he is at today by just looking at the evil, the perpetual evil which is amplifying itself day by day. And so the final movement will be rapid ones, we are being told. Those who would not receive the mark of the beast must now begin to prepare. So this is not about knowing. It's important to know about the mark of the beast, of course. It's important to see the signs and to realize where we are. And I've been saying this also here a lot of times, but the preparation, the mental, spiritual, and physical preparation. For me, and the point I'm trying to make here, it's what is on the other side. What am I being preparing for? The new earth or this one? When I'm reading my Bible, it's pretty clear that this phase of control, it's inevitable. Do you agree on that? Agnostics, people outside can see it. But the Bible, it's also telling me, and what I'm telling other people, don't worry. It's just for a while. It's temporary. But you have to prepare now. You have to make a choice. You need to take a decision. Because this is going to happen before the new earth arrives. And that's for sure. And so the question, which line are we in? The next 24 hours, the next week, and the next time we still live, it's going to prove about our answer. Passive lane to me means no faith, no learning, no action. Ending in closed doors, stripes, and the beast mark, where the active lane is disciplined obedience prophetic awareness, sacrificial love, ending in an open gate to the new earth. So friends, this is not about a fantasy utopia land. It's about preparation, so we need to be honest. If we recognize the prophetic pattern but make no move to prepare, what does it say about our choice, about our faith? Is it lack of belief? Fear of sacrifice? Just spiritual laziness? I believe Bible is very clear about what's going to happen. And we've been admonished to be ready for the Son of Man is coming at an hour we do not expect. And we've been also been not just warned but taught that none but those who have fortified their mind with the truth of the Bible will stand through the last greatest conflict. It's a privilege to live through the greatest period and conflict in the history of this planet. And the history of this planet that we live right now, it wasn't supposed to be so. It was supposed to be totally different. But anyway, here we are. We have been constantly seeked for. And so let's practice the fire drill. Because when the real fire is going to be upon us, when the alarm sounds for real, only those who prepared for the fire drill will escape. The spectators just watches, hoping for a win without effort. And so, if you see the pattern, and if you believe the prophecy, if you have already decided which world to go for, are you preparing? Are you an athlete training for eternity, or just a spectator in the stands? And if you're still in doubt, if you're still not really preparing, why not? Lack of faith, fear of loss, maybe just spiritual apathy. And see, this new world order which is being prepared for every single individual being alive on this planet, it's coming fast, my friends. I have the information, but that's not really important, but it's coming, you see it. It's already in the making, it's already in the legislation, and so forth. But friends, don't be afraid, because so it's the new earth. So which future are we betting on? There will be a point where the door is going to be shut. And that, knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. The night is far spent. The day is at hand. That was Romans chapter 13. And so, friends, the alarm is sounding. And to me, I don't know about you, this eternity is not a distant fantasy, esoterical theory. It is maybe for many at the next heartbeat after this life ends. And so I see only one window. I see that we only have today to decide who or where we would like to be and where we stand. And as we have seen so many times, neutrality, friends, it's a myth. Silence, it's actually a vote for the status quo. And silence, it's a vote for the new world order. And so we need to wake up, because there is no time to lose, because the final movement will be rapid ones. God doesn't need sleepwalking Christians. God didn't design Christians built for comfort, blindsided by control, by coercion, by counterfeit freedom that we see today and which is being offered. God is designed open-minded Christians with open eyes that saw through the pattern. Digital chains masquerading as convenience. God designed Christians that will recognize the prophetic hour. So choose this day which earth, which planet, which kingdom ye will serve. And so let's say together and let's pray together. As for me and my house will serve the Lord. So help us God. A decision kept inside is no decision at all. And so let's declare it. In our home, in our mind, on our feed online, at our job, let our words and wallets, our screen time and schedule broadcast all over the place where our loyalty lies. Because when once the master of the house is risen up and hath shut the door, and he begin to stand without, saying, Lord, Lord, he shall answer, I know you not. And as we said, oil must be in the lamp before midnight. Prayers, self-denial, generosity, courage, while preparation is still possible. Today, not next week. Not after one more binge scroll. Admit you cannot drift into eternity. You must surrender. State your allegiance to the new everlasting King publicly. Re-engineer your priorities, time, money, media, relationships. Rescue, lead someone else toward the same door while it is still open. To delay is to perish. Do you agree on that? Friends, this is serious. And whatever decision we make, be silent, it's also a decision. That's going to be a one-time, once-for-all decision. And so today and not next week. You know, I imagine I've seen this picture for many, many years since I was a kid. And I was actually explained, I don't remember who, that the handle, it's only on the inside. You know, we have today these French doors where the handle, it's only on the inside. But the hinge is groaning. And so we need to choose now before it clicks shut for all eternity. And so this is my prayer. And this is for me what the final reset it's all about. So I hope I made my case that for me and my house, the eternity, it's real. God bless. Thank you.